We're here with Christian Ray Flores, who is an entrepreneur. He's an international recording artist, a philanthropist, and a high-performance coach. He has had an extraordinary journey from a child refugee in Chile to entertaining millions as a pop star in Eastern Europe, and he leads philanthropic projects internationally. He plants churches, he founds entrepreneurial projects in the US. His website is thirddrive.co, and we're going to find out from Mr. Christian about success on autopilot. We'll find out the exponential life, about spiritual and contemplative practices, and so much more, so that way we can have an excellent life, a fulfilling business, and everything that goes along with that. So, Mr. Christian, glad to be speaking with you.
It's a pleasure. I'm delighted to be here.
And delighted to have you. It's always good to talk with someone. It's far too simple and easy to regress back and just be behind the computer screen, be behind a phone. So here we are having this person-to-person communication. And what did I leave out of your bio? What currently has you just super excited, jazzed up, energized?
I think maybe maybe you can now tell I'm confused about even my answer because I'm excited about more than one thing. So I would say, number one, I really enjoy doing the high performance coaching that I do through Exponential Life, which is the company I lead. And that's one. And the reason for that is I just really enjoy helping people transcend themselves. You know, most of us we really don't really believe what we can do at the extent of what we're able to do. So that's one. The second one, probably media creation. I host a popular newsletter called Headspace by Christian Ray Flores and a podcast. That's exciting because that really I'm able to, deliver great value at scale to a lot of people. And the third one is the philanthropic effort. We started an after-school academy in Mozambique, in Maputo, Mozambique, a few years ago, and just interacting with the volunteers, the kids that are getting character help, English, computer literacy in a place. It's one of the poorest countries in the world, and it just takes like $100 a month to sponsor a kid and to help him have a completely different life. So that is just probably one of the most fulfilling things I have right now.
Well, it seems like it's like three stages or three amounts of this transcendence you're talking about, right? There's like overcoming your own stuff and achieving this greatness. Then there's like the publicity factor. You're saying that you kind of have this podcast and you get the word out. And then there's even past that, and it's like the greater good, right? There's like what it really means and helping out these kids that really need it. And it seems like just that there's definitely a need to get some awareness from you about what's possible and what you've done and what we can do. And it seems like there's a need to just get over our own excuses, right? And the people that say, oh, well, I have such low self-esteem, or I can't do this, or, well, what change could I really make in the world? And so, like, what do you come across? There's always the naysayers that either need educating or just need to be out of our lives. But like, what kind of just resistance do you come across when you're spreading your positive message?
That is a great question. Okay. I would say, in no particular order, but I think the top ones that I see are these. The first one is people that are in between seasons, right? So I see in professional development, I see 4 seasons. One is a student, and we're actually to some degree in all 4 at the same time somewhere. But generally speaking, right, broad strokes, you're a student, you're thinking about life, you're studying about life, you're not participating in life actively. Then you become a practitioner. You become this young person joining a company or starting something or creating something. Then you become a master. Then you become a sage. In between those 4 seasons, there's always tension. There's always lack of clarity, confusion, fear, anxiety, things like that. So the people that I usually work with are in between those stages, almost always. So that's one sort of seasonal, right? Almost like a seasonal recalibration kind of tension there. The other one, I think, is when people, one way or another, it really doesn't matter why, but they become addicted to certainty. You really value predictability, certainty, a monthly salary, status, position, respect, all of those things. And your soul is telling you, hey, you need to turn right or turn left or go up. And you need to switch, you need to evolve, you need to transition. And that overlays actually with the seasons. And you go, no, I would prefer certainty over this sort of messy middle of uncertainty. That's probably another one. And the third one I would say is not paying attention to your individual unique sort of wiring, right? Almost programming, what you were put on earth to do. And you sort of start living somebody else's story. And the story could be your society, your parents, your peers, keeping up with the Joneses, that kind of thing. And you live somebody else. I mean, you always start by living somebody else's story. All of us do, because we're not mature enough to understand exactly. And it's also a moving target. It evolves over time. But I would say there are these moments where you go, you live in somebody else's story, that you're sort of dissatisfied, lack of fulfillment. You can do better and more, or more aligned to your makeup, and you just don't make that move.
Ooh, this is some deep stuff. These are some big ideas. There's the cognitive dissonance, right? The conflicting ideas of saying, well, I like the certainty, I like the safety, but I'm also slightly miserable because I know I could do more, and I'm kind of fighting the risk. And it also seems like there's this idea of inertia, right? Like you get stuck in a relationship, a career, a business, a certain path, and it serves you for a while. But then when those seasons change and it's time for that uncomfortable period, then we need to step up and make a change, all in service of this idea of like discovering your true self. And I like what you said there about how you start off living someone else's story, right? You get inspired by someone else and they do this thing. You're like, well, I need to start somewhere, right? There's all the things that could be done in life. They've kind of already been done, right? People have invented these businesses or launched this career. You say, okay, here's kind of my spark, and then I'll go on that path. But I have to start living my own life and kind of use that as the template or as the starting point. So as far as it relates to you and the amazing journey that you've been on, now that we have a beginning of an idea here, like what are you all about? What kind of things have you seen? What have you gone through?
Well, it is a wild story. So my origin story is so unusual because I was born in Russia. My mom's Russian, my dad's Chilean. So we moved to Chile when I was a baby. And then there was a military coup, and I was a 5-year-old, and my dad was in a concentration camp, and my mom is in hiding. And then we were refugees in a refugee facility, and it's danger and death, and like tens of thousands of people are getting arrested and killed, and all of that. And we end up making it out of there safely. Got asylum in Germany, then went back to Russia, back to sort of this miserable Soviet existence in a communal apartment. We're very poor. And then my father gets a job in Africa, in Mozambique, also one of the poorest countries in the world. But for us, it was sort of a little bit of an improvement when it comes to our sort of level of living. And that kind of, and then there's a civil war there, right? Like a year in. So I saw so much change, so much uncertainty, that, after overcoming the trauma of it, and it's a process, what's left is a lot of strength, a lot of abilities that are, would be considered, out unfair advantages in the marketplace. And it all sort of plays out when we go back to the Soviet Union. We see the whole thing collapse again, tanks in the streets. And I got an education as an economist. I have a master's in economics. I speak 4 languages, but I did this very sort of lateral move going, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do music, because I was musical my whole life. And all of those sort of very strange, seemingly on the surface disadvantages came together as an advantage. A lot of creativity. I don't have an aversion to risk, so I became one of the top pop artists in all of Russia. I helped elect the president, produced other bands, and started churches there. I became a Christian sort of in the middle of there. So I started doing a lot of philanthropic work, and because of being exposed to the third world my whole life, it was easier for me to do that, right? To go to places that most sort of middle-class Americans probably wouldn't want to go to. And when we moved to the States about 20 years ago, that same sort of set of qualities helped me start 2 or 3 businesses. One of them failed, 2 of them are still around, and a couple of nonprofits. So that's sort of the quick fast forward journey of my crazy story.
And that is a crazy story, and I like it. It seems like wherever you go, something falls apart, and you have to pick yourself up and figure out your resilience, and there's no way to go but forward. And so I'm really curious about, how do you reconcile sticking something out and making it work versus giving up? Because there's so many times when we're like, well, do I keep on pushing forward with this cause or with this business? And sometimes there's that fear of like, well, am I sticking around too long? Or if I give it up, am I throwing away something good? So with all of your just like, phase after phase, season after season, do these thoughts come into mind as far as like your judgment about when to stay and when to quit?
Well, all the time, and it's both in my journey and also when I mentor and even coach entrepreneurs, founders, people like that. And yeah, I've seen so many patterns emerge from those things. And I would say maybe in no particular order, these are the things that really stick out to me. One is almost always the thing that you're trying to do next will take longer, it's going to cost you more, and it's going to be harder than you think. Almost always. It's just, I don't know what the nature of the whole thing is, but that's how it is, right? So if you want to do that, what you need to do, I think, is sort of calibrate your life for a marathon rather than a sprint. And okay, what does that mean? What you mean, for example, you have to lower your burn rate to the very, very minimum. Like go Spartan. That's sort of what we call it in our family. Go to Spartan mode. And why? Because you'll last longer, financially, right? Don't focus on 3 things or 4 things. Focus on one thing if you want to get it off the ground. Eventually, when it's up and you can have it set up so other people run it, you're sort of above the business, not in the business, then you can switch, and that's totally fine. But I make that mistake chronically. Like I'm totally professionally ADHD, and I can start 2 things and 3 things at the same time. And because of just the sheer, willpower, faith, and grit that I have, I can make it work, but it doesn't work really, really well, And so what I've come to the conclusion is one thing at a time, always one thing at a time. And whatever, and it's very hard to do when you're passionate about 2 or 3 things, right? So the stuff that I do now, I have very, very well calibrated in the sense of delegated. My role is very specific, limited to this thing, and that's it, And the thing that I'm building, I'm all in, and I go like as close as possible to every aspect of the thing in detail, experimenting, and that is the thing. You obsess over the thing. And you obsess over the thing, I would say on average, 3 to 5 years to even know what you're doing. I mean, honestly, like 3 years to just be known for something. 5 years to figuring out what works, Right. And then on top of that, now you're flying, right? If you stick with it. And so I guess this is a bit more of a nuanced answer, right? But I hope it helps people understand that there's more to it than just, hey, do the same thing over and over again or give up too early.
It is helpful and it's almost counterintuitive, isn't it? As far as the work required, it's always more than you imagine. And like you look up like any kind of achievements, right? You think of like what it took to land on the moon, and at first glance you're like, oh, well, couldn't they just have said, hey, the moon's up there, launch the rocket, park it over there? And when you look into it, it's like, man, like it's amazing that something like that even happened. There's so many steps involved, and so many times it can get frustrating, maybe because our expectations are always incorrect, and it does help to be overly optimistic. That's like a very American thing to do, right? To be way more optimistic than we deserve. But then sometimes that gets you there, right? That's the fuel. And so as far as you powering through the setbacks and the failures and getting like your enthusiasm going, do you have any secrets of that? Like you mentioned about like having like the daily obsession? Are you someone that says, well, you have like a coach or a mentor, you have people on board with you? How do we keep that excitement sustained long enough to get to the finish line?
Number one is having a coach or a mentor. Number one, and I'll tell you why. Is you're objectively subjective if you're starting a new thing or switching, right? You're objective. You just don't know what you don't know. So having somebody who is outside of your thing, looking and have a consistency of contact, accountability, and back and forth will literally quintuple your speed of movement. It really will, or more, actually.
Sure.
I was talking to a client, 4 days ago, who I was helping to set up his personal brand, sort of, the technical part, the infrastructure, the thinking, the pitching, the messaging, the positioning. And I'm like, I basically said, so, and we're making progress. And he goes, yeah, okay, we're making progress. And it's slow. And I go, okay, so tell me something. If we're doing what we're doing together right now, instead of taking you 2 months to get there, would it take you 5 months, a year? And he basically thought about it. He goes, actually, never. It would have never happened. And sometimes that's the difference. You have in you what is necessary for success, but you do need somebody to catalyze that, somebody to accelerate that, amplify that. And sometimes it's the difference between 6 months and 6 years. Sometimes it's a difference between 3 months and never, So I would say it 100% this is it. This is the thing. People. I had another thing and I forgot what I was saying.
Oh, no.
Okay. I think you referred daily rhythms, right?
Yeah.
To me, it's like the reason I do high performance coaching, right? Why is that? Well, because we all have the same amount of time. Like that's the only unscalable thing we have, and we have the same amount, each one of us. So the one thing you can do is to become a high performing person, like as a lifestyle, as a capability, as a skill. And to do that, you have to basically, you sleep for 8 hours. You have what? 16 hours. This is 16 chips are put on your table, and you need to bet them a certain way. How are you going to use those 16 chips every single, and it expires at the end of the day.
Right.
How are you going to use them? So developing the skills, the mindset, the rhythms, the all of those things, the lifestyle, the capability even to bet 16 chips every single day with the maximum probability of success and winning. That is a massive thing, right? So the person who is high achieving can do 4 times what the person who is not is. So invest in that. How do you get there?
And how you do get there, it's not a straightforward answer, is it? It takes some of the work and to figure out all of that nuance. But I imagine that most people aren't even thinking in this way, right? Well, I imagine a lot of people, they don't have the strategy, they don't have the awareness, they're just kind of drifting through life. And this is why it's so important that you're here delivering this message to us, so that way we can kind of ask these hard questions that might be uncomfortable, but that's okay, because it's leading us to that change and transformation and getting us to where we want to go. And so in a few minutes here, I want to start to wrap things up and mention the philanthropy and some next steps. But before we do, I want to make sure that we cover what you think is important. So in this conversation we're having, right, I'm asking questions and I'm guessing, but I'm sure there's like a really good question that I just don't know to ask you. So what comes to mind for you there, Mr. Christian? What's like the missing hidden question in this conversation that I should be asking you, I just don't know to ask you?
Okay, so maybe one step deeper than the mentoring and coaching thing. There's this one thing that I think might be helpful to you. We are all products of this very post-industrial way of learning, right? Even if you went to private school and a very good school, a lot of the times we have this conveyor belt of a system of formal education, and we think that that's how people learn. And the truth is that is actually not how people learn, grown-ups. People learn 10% only through formal, 20% through doing things with others. So it's sort of a relational learning experience. and 70% by doing the thing over and over and over again, right? And what most people it's almost like an escape. You read all these books. You have all these people on Twitter going, "I read 50 business books, and this is what I learned." It's going to be it's impossible for you to read 50 business books and to actually learn what you need to learn from them. Read one and then do the thing. Then read another and then do the thing. So that in concert with coaching, how does that work? Well, people sometimes perceive coaching as, you're going to tell me what to do, I'll do it, and I'll be successful. That's not how it works. Coaching is an apprenticeship. Coaching is you immediately doing what somebody's recommending for you to do, and it works. It sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't work very well, and you experiment, you do it over and over again, and you do it with the other person. So the 70-20 is covered by that, and only 10% is telling you what to do and giving you some advice. So it's a much more immersive way of learning. I call it deep learning. And this is the thing, if you allow yourself to just learn how to learn that way, you will be completely unstoppable.
You speak it like a true musician, right? That's huge with music, is that it's tempting to have the shallow knowledge and say, well, let me just learn a little bit of each instrument. Let me learn a little bit of each song. And then when it gets a little difficult, then let me just pack up and do something else. But when you get through that aggravation, right? You can't figure out that chord with the guitar. You can't figure out that difficult song. You experiment, you have fun, you put in your reps. I think that's really powerful. And that's interesting to think about.
You're absolutely exactly right. And I think making even the comparison of your vocation, your professional life to art it's a very appropriate way to think about it. Because the people that win, the people that succeed, people that flourish, that become exponential, that's why I like the word exponential, that they start having that kind of impact, are the people that really transform the way they work into art, and that's unique to you. And that's what gives you can command premium value if you transform your work into art.
That is an incredible concept, transforming your work into art. And I can relate to that because I do computer programming, and you can imagine sometimes I'm like, let me just code up this thing and let me see what it creates and let me have fun with the AI or with this plugin or with this app. And it's like you kind of, and it sustains you better, right? Because you're not just like, the making money and getting people to use what you make, that's an important component, but also just like your own personal enjoyment and accomplishment. It's kind of, it's intangible, and I'm like, I can't quite quantify it, but it's something that we should be pursuing, right? That this enjoyment of our one singular life. And so speaking to that and getting this exponential life figured out, what are some next steps here? Like, we're on a podcast, so there's really only time for a taste or a tease. But if someone says, man, this guy Christian Ray Flores, he's like Yoda with his life advice and with the kind of the ahas he's delivering. So if someone wants to find out more about the philanthropy, the book, the podcast, the website, what are some logical next steps here?
Oh, thanks for asking. So I would say this: philanthropy. Let's talk about philanthropy, because I'm in that mode of now raising sort of the financing for the next school year for these kids in Africa we're redirecting their lives by giving them character formation, mentoring, which is, by the way, that's sort of a key thing there, English and computer literacy. So for that, go to ascend, as in going up, .academy, and that will take you to the website. You'll see the project. It's a small project, but it's powerful. And it just takes $100 a month to sustain a kid, right? And so you can participate. The people that donate sort of significant amounts can go on trips with us every once in a while, so we can be fully immersed with this world. So I think we're planning a trip for November to Mozambique. So that's one. If you feel like, hey, this Yoda-like type personality, I'd like more of the Yoda-like insights, you can just subscribe to my newsletter. It has almost 20,000 subscribers as of today. It's in christianrayflores.com. It's the Substack newsletter, and it has a free a post that goes every week, and then one in the middle of the week just for paid subscribers, and that's a deeper dive. If you're like in the 1% of the people that go, okay, this guy, I got to get to know this guy, and I want to work with this guy. Go to exponential spelled without the E, .life, and that's the coaching program website, and you'll just see testimonials, the things that we do, the how we focus on things, the problems we solve, how we coach people. So, and you can reach out through there. Oh, there's a free assessment
Very
there,
nice.
by the way. That's another thing.
Ooh.
There's a free assessment. It takes like 5 minutes to complete, and you get a report in your inbox on the strengths and weaknesses that are actually the most important things for you to consider.
And we can definitely use that sort of help, that feedback, right? If we keep on plowing through and saying, you know, there's no problem, I'll just keep on continuing on this linear trajectory, then you might get the same results as you've gotten, if not, maybe even a little worse, because like life changes around you, and some of these techniques that did work might not work. So it's a scary place to be. And why not be proactive and get ahead of these future problems? And so we gave you these 3 buckets, right? There's Ascends.academy, where you can find out about that after-school program in Mozambique. Their mission is to lift children out of poverty by giving them the skills to succeed as future professionals. Then there's ChristianRayFlores.com, which is that Substack you mentioned. If you are in podcast land out there and you like to keep up to date with everything Christian's putting out, there's your place to read that. And then we said Exponential.life. That's exponential without the E, so exponential.life. That's where you can find that assessment and find out about performance coaching for purpose-driven professionals. If you're feeling stuck at a plateau, gearing up for a new victory, or you're coachable and ready to grow and go, then go to exponential.life and find out what Mr. Christian Ray Flores has for you and can help you get there. And before I let you go, Christian, it's time for the scary part of the show to maybe stump you a little bit, put you on the spot. This is where I like to ask my guest. Let's do it. You're game. You're down. I like to ask my guest about a fun quote or lesson that has served them in business or in life that they can pass on to us. So what comes to mind for a fun quote or lesson?
Okay, one of my favorite ones was I was 13 years old. We were traveling in Africa, and we were we're flying in this little plane to snorkel in this island in Mozambique. And we see this guy, this person in the water, and we're like, what is this? Oh, that's João. That's he spear fishes lobster for us for the hotel. And he was like miles away from the shore. So we land, and we hired this guy to show us the good places. We hang out with him for a day. And one of the biggest lessons is that he was like this really like real life Aquaman type of guy. Like the way he swam, the way he spearfish was just unbelievable. So he would tell us there's the lobster congregate under rocks usually. And then there's a type of shark that also rests under the rock, and it's usually in the way of the lobster. And we were like, so what do you do? How do you get to the lobster? And he goes, I just shake the shark. And to me, the term shake the shark became this term of basically saying, look, the things that you want to get to some lobster in life, there's going to be a shark laying in between you and the lobster at any given time. And you could be something that scares you, something that gives you this impression that, ooh, I want to stay away from this. And the truth is, the shark almost never actually attacks and bites. And all you have to do is swim to the shark and shake it by the fin, and it's going to swim away, and you can get to the lobster. And I find that to be absolutely true for most things in life. People just don't approach the shark. They don't shake the shark, so they never see the lobster. They never get to the lobster. And if you learn how to sort of mentally, emotionally, almost like calibrate yourself to do that, like this guy, his name is João, you can be extraordinary. You will be unstoppable.
That's great advice. They say, always do what you are afraid to do. And it sounds counterintuitive, but the average person avoids fear, and then they don't really take the risks that they should. And so it's like, well, do you want to be average, or do you want to achieve so much in life, which you only have one of, and you can't go back? There's no do-over. So embrace today and use those 16 chips you have every day and make the most of it, especially with the help of Mr. Christian Ray Flores from Ascends.academy, from ChristianRayFlores.com, and Exponential.life. Very entertaining and enlightening having you here, Mr. Christian.
Oh, Robert, thank you so much for having me. This was great.